This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. There we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're broadcasting 2 hours daily from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Today, we're broadcasting live from the farm. Monday at 5:30, we've got a meetup. Experimenting on our military with Joyce Riley, live teleseminar. And then the following Monday, Dr. Judy Wood will be with us, live and in person. She's going to be signing her book, a 500-page encyclopedia. And there'll be 2 hours at least of the most informative presentation, questions and answers about the towers, the World Trade Center. Where did they go? Dr. Judy Wood and I have planned 16 one-hour broadcasts on 9/11 science right here on USAPrepares.com. Information will be posted on the website. And there's a link to all of your instructors on the website, USAPrepares.com. Podcasts on Genesis are free. Just visit USAPrepares.com, click on Listen to Vincent, GCN, and you will be able to listen to the podcast, download them for free. There are up-to-the-minute articles and stories on the website that we think you should consider reading. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Nathan is at the controls for the worldwide broadcast in Minnesota. Today, we're going to be doing something that needs to be done. We're going to be discussing personal protection, personal safety during a societal collapse. With me is your newest instructor, Skip Coryell. He's the president of White Feather Press. It's whitefeatherpress.com. We're going to be discussing the unthinkable. What to do when the law of the jungle takes over. Get ready. This information is information you need to know, but just thinking about it might be unpleasant for some. For those who cannot think about what we're about to discuss, those people have a lower chance for their own survival. Skip Coryell works as a full-time professional writer. He's published 9 books, and they are centered around personal defense and the Second Amendment and activism. Second Amendment activism. He's an avid hunter, a sportsman. He loves the outdoors. How avid? The last time we were on the phone together, he used a speakerphone because he was processing a deer. Skip is also a Marine. Welcome, Skip Coryell.
Well, thank you, Vince, for having me on. I really appreciate it. I think we're going to have a good talk today.
Skip, regardless of what the news tells us, murders are on the rise. Violence is on the rise. And we hear of it almost on a daily basis. It's in the news. And, it wasn't always like that. And I believe that we are spiraling down towards societal disintegration. And I believe it's been happening for the last 30 years or so, but at an ever-increasing rate. Are you also concerned?
Well, yeah, I am. I'm very concerned. You just mentioned a whole bunch of stuff there that's very, very relevant and that people should be thinking about. And I'm 56 years old now. When I grew up, we didn't lock our doors. We weren't worried about being murdered in our sleep. We didn't even think about those things. Our neighbors were our friends and our allies. Now, you don't even know who your neighbors are. They could be mentally ill. They could be drug addicts. You have no idea. And yeah, I'm very concerned about it, and I also own a company called Midwest Tactical Training, where I teach concealed carry tactics, and anyone who wants to get a concealed pistol license would, go through me in Michigan to do that. So yeah, there's a huge rise of interest in that. My classes are always booked to overflowing now. Just tons of stuff going on, at the grassroots level from, everyday people like you and I. So yeah, very concerned, and a lot of other people are as well, despite, the news coming out of Washington, D.C. is everything's rosy, everything's good, crime is down, don't worry, nothing to see here, kind of an attitude there. So it's there's all kinds of stuff going on right now, and that's why my classes are so full.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are those anomalies, Skip. I was talking with one of our instructors, Mike Knox, yesterday, and he and I were talking about the economy. And I proposed to him that in my belief, most of the businesses that are small businesses, shops, stores, and those kinds of things, not the anomalies, but for the most part, business commerce is down 75% for small business. And I think, and he agreed with me, and he travels the country, he does shows, and he's a really good guy. He sees it too. And so as we spiral down toward having less and less wherewithal, there's some who will do whatever they have to get what they need. And I can see that in the rise in theft, holdups, burglaries, break-ins, and it's not getting better, Skip. It's not. So if history is to be our guide, it seems to me that we need to be very concerned with our own personal safety.
Yeah, I personally, I don't think it's going to get better. I mean, it's like if we're in a plane, we're in a crash dive. I don't think we're going to pull out. I really, really don't. I would love to be wrong on this one, but I don't think that we are. And I hope for the best, but I prepare for the worst. And my family and I, we've been preparing for the worst for about 5 years now, and that's my attitude. We're prepared in every way that we can. In personal security, that's going to be, I always put that number one on my list. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medical, all communications, all that stuff you have to prepare for. But I always put personal security at the very top, because in my view, okay, without water, you're dead in 3 days. Without food, you're dead in 30 days. Without personal security, you can be dead in 3 seconds. And so that's why I put that at number one, and it gets a big deal of amount of attention in my family. So that's why I put it at number one, and that's what I'm here to talk about today.
Well, let's start talking about it, and let's start with how much as a percentage would you say personal defense has to do with a firearm? Is it having a gun? Is that all you need? Because right here, Skip, right here in the studio right now with me, I'm armed. And when I'm on my tractor, I'm armed. And when I'm changing my oil, I'm armed. And when I'm out feeding the chickens, I'm armed. But is that all it takes, is for someone to just do that, or is it way bigger than that?
No. It's a lot more than that. 90% of personal protection has nothing to do with the firearm. It has to do with your training, your attitude, your skills, all that stuff that's between your ears. It's called a brain. That's basically what it's all about. I mean, just because you own a guitar, that doesn't make you a rock star. I mean, you have to know how to use it. You got to know how to play it. You got to have the attitude, the skills, all of that stuff, and that only comes through discipline and practice. Practice, perfect practice, discipline every single day. And I'm glad to hear that you're armed right now. I'm always armed as well. My wife, she's always armed. My personal strategy, my basic rule of thumb, if you will, when I'm out on the streets, when I'm in public, within 2 seconds, I have to have a loaded gun in my hand, cocked, locked, ready to rock. When I'm in my home, I give myself a little more time. I'll give myself up to 5 seconds. because it might be in a safe or whatever. Usually not. But that's for me. And if that's the case now in a quote-unquote civilized world that we live in, after, the crap hits the fan, you're going to have to shorten those amounts of time from 2 seconds to 1 second, from 5 seconds to 2 seconds. That's just the way that it is, because the world is going to become a lot more dangerous, when society collapses. So it's going to be really, it's not enough to be able to have a gun. You got to know how to use it. I mean, I get people in my classes, they don't even know which end of the barrel the round comes out of. So, you got to start from ground zero and just work your way up to get all these skills. I mean, these are skills that are acquired over a lifetime for a lot of people. And so if you haven't started, you're late. So you need to get started now and start from the basics and work your way up. But, it's amazing what you can do in 8 hours. I'll have an 8-hour class, and in 8 hours I can teach someone to not be dangerous to themselves or society. But and basically you're just saying, you know what, here are the skills. You've got to learn these skills. This is the starting point. And what you do from here on out, that's up to you. But, I can, if I have someone, I can mold them, I can teach them. But they've got to have that warrior spirit, that warrior attitude. There's so many sheep in society today, and that's going to be the number one killer, is the attitudes that we have. People, they're just not going to be able to pull the trigger when they have to, and as a result, someone in their family is going to die or themselves. So a lot to consider when you talk about carrying a gun, whether it's in a Teotihuacan situation or the society that we have right now.
Skip, I host a meetup every Monday night at a restaurant called Ziggy's, and I'm always armed, and they're used to me. As a matter of fact, they're at least 10% of those who come to our meetup are armed. And I've asked many times, and I've asked, how many of you are armed? And hands go up, and I count, and, I can do the arithmetic, and it's 10%. We come back, I'll tell you what a woman said to me when she saw me armed at Ziggy's, and then we'll continue on with the skills, and let's talk about what happens as we get into jungle law. Skip Coryell, Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. We're talking about the collapse of society and the survival. We'll be right back. Skip Coryell's with us, and we're talking about personal safety. Skip, I'd like to share a story with you. Every Monday, we have a meetup at Ziggy's. It's a restaurant in Springfield, Missouri, and a lot of us are armed. And one night, a middle-aged woman approached me, and she said, "Why do you carry a gun?" And I said, "Well, it's my duty. It's my duty to protect my family. It's my duty to protect those around me. And if something bad happens, even you." And she was shocked, and she said, "Do you realize what a small probability there is that you will need that gun?" And I said, "Yes, I do. And I'm ready for it." That's my attitude, Skip. Do you think that is the appropriate attitude, or would you like to refine that in some way?
Well, no, I think it is the appropriate attitude. I mean, so what? If 1 out of 10,000 times you go out, you'll be accosted by a madman. I mean, you want to be ready when that happens. I mean, I grew up as a Boy Scout. I want to be prepared, So, that's my attitude as well. There's a lot of sheep out there. Most of society is composed of sheep. And they have this attitude that I want to be taken care of. If there's danger out there, I don't want to know about it. And when I see your gun, it reminds me that the world is a dangerous place to live. And they instinctively know that they are not prepared to meet that danger. And should the wolf attack, they're going to die. So they don't want to be ready. They don't want to touch that gun because they're sheep. But they don't want to see you, the sheepdog, with that gun, because they live in denial. And the person who lives in denial during, a grid down situation or a societal collapse scenario, they're going to die, because there will be no more sticking your head in the sand, because the bad guy is going to be coming to you. He's coming to town, and he ain't Santa Claus. So, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've run across that attitude myself a lot. But you know what? When that grid goes down or EMP burst or whatever it is, when that happens, it's basically it's come to Jesus time. It's like it's gonna happen. You're gonna have to live with it. You're gonna have to deal with it. And you know what? Sheep are born and bred for one purpose. That's to have their body parts processed into something useful by wolves. The sheep are going to die, and the people who are prepared are going to live. Black and white. That's the way it is.
So, Skip, in a societal collapse scenario, doesn't it seem that our traditional views, our conventional views, the way we've been taught, goes out the window?
Yeah, it does, because basically, the way we think and live right now, people are supposed to have an aversion to, taking another one of their own species. We're not supposed to enjoy that. We're not supposed to like it, okay? That's a normal person. A psychopath, they enjoy it, have no problem with it. They're totally desensitized to it. But for us, I mean, you and me, we're parents, brothers and sisters. We've got family. We've been raised, to revere life. But the rules change when society collapses, because right now everything about our society is man-made. It's artificial. There is a thin veneer of civilization that covers our society, and when that veneer is stripped away, it's law of the jungle. It's dog eats dog. It's survival of the fittest. And if you are in a situation like that and you can't do what has to be done, i.e. take another human life, you're going to die, or one of your family members is going to die. You're just going to have to change the rules of engagement. The gun is going to be more important, much more important than it is today, because it's going to be more necessary in order for you to survive. Today, if you don't have a gun, that woman is right. You can walk around, and most of the time, you'll be okay. But in a societal collapse scenario, if you don't have a gun, you're just flat out going to die. It's like, just pin a sign on your back that says, sheep, free meal here, because that's what it's going to do. Because you can gather all the beans in the world and all the water, but if you don't have the means to defend it, it's like, go ahead, you might as well give it up and leave your home, because if you stay, you're going to die. That is just the way it is. It's black and white.
Hold that thought, Skip. When we come back, we'll talk about the knock on the door that we all dread. Class, Skip Coryell is with us, your newest instructor, and he's the president of whitefeatherpress.com. And if you'd like to visit his website, skipcoryell.com, skipcoryell.com. There's a link on page 1 on the website under instructors at the bottom of the page where all the instructors are. You can find Skip Coryell. Click on the link. It'll take you right to his website. And his latest book, The God Virus. And we'll talk about the God virus at another time. But Skip's an author. He's a publisher. And you'll find out more about him on the website. Skip, here's the scenario. It's dinner time. It's dark. There's a knock on the door. We open the door. There's a man, disheveled, dirty, and this is after the grid goes down. He's unkempt, and he says, "I'm hungry. My wife is with me. 2 other men have joined us. Our children are over there. We're desperate. We need food." Now it's our turn to say something or do something. Skip, that is many of our worst fears. Second to being having the door bashed in by the government. What do we do, Skip?
Well, that's a tough one. But I think it's definitely something you have to analyze and figure out before you get in that situation.
Agreed.
First off, I wouldn't open the door. I'm assuming that we don't have extra food for charity. Is that the situation?
Yeah, the situation is you're right. We don't have to open the door, but the situation is we're down. We're down because we don't have much to go around, and that's all we have. What we have is dinner, and tomorrow's going to be really lean unless we can hunt or scavenge or something. It's not a good situation for us either.
Well, I'm a Christian. I believe in charity, but in this particular situation, you've got to turn that man away. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. I mean, you're going to have to. I mean, if you give away your food, and then you look into the eyes of your children right there and say, "I'm sorry, Daddy just gave away all your food. We can't eat tomorrow." That's unacceptable to me. My priorities in life are God, family, and country in that order. God comes first, then my family, then country. That man and his family and his companions, that's country. That comes in number 3. If I have extra, I'll help them. But if I don't, I'm sorry, my family has to come first. And that's just the way that it's got to be, especially in a grid-down situation, because you're no good to anyone if you're dead. You can't protect your family. You can't feed your family. You can't, you prepared. It's like the grasshopper and the ant story. You prepared, they didn't. And it's cold, it's callous, but if you're going to survive, you've got to survive as a family, as a team, as your own special forces unit. That family's got to come first, and that's just the way. That it is. It's going to be that way, and you're going to have to turn that guy away. And if you won't go away, then you do what has to be done to protect your family. That's the way it's got to be.
And, Skip, that's precisely why we have this broadcast. That's why I got behind the microphone 3 years ago. I'm a farmer. I live on a farm, and I thought that if more of us are prepared for whatever we might need, whatever our lifestyle might be, then we won't have to go get what we need when we need it, because we'll have it. And therefore, there will be less glass broken. There will be less blood in the streets. So that's precisely why we're doing this. So we don't want that situation that we just described to happen, but it will. It will. I know it will. And that brings us to S3, the letter S and the number 3. And that's the new law, right? The law of the jungle. You want to talk about those 3 S's?
Yeah, well,
it's rough.
It
class,
is.
We don't want to do this, but this is the reality. I'm not kidding. This is the reality.
Yep. Well, the 3 S's. I mean, I grew up in a rural situation, and my parents, were children during the Great Depression, and they grew up during World War II. That generation was a more prepared generation. I mean, they were doing by nature a lot of the things that we're learning to do now. The 3 S's, basically shoot, shovel, and shut up. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to dial 911 on a phone system that doesn't work? It ain't going to happen. It's just you and the jungle. And when the jungle comes to your door, you repel the jungle. If you can repel, great. If they leave, that's better. If they don't, you shoot, shovel, and shut up. That's the way that it is. I mean, it's been that way for millennia. Why would it change now? Once the grid goes down, we are going back in time, not just a couple hundred years, but centuries and centuries. And everything will revert back to its natural state. And in its natural state, someone tries to kill you, you defend yourself, I teach a sanitized version of Law of the Jungle in my NRA class because it's a little more politically correct. And the NRA will say, shoot to stop the threat. I teach my students, you stop the threat by causing massive tissue damage and blood loss. That's how you stop the threat. That's the way it is. I mean, if you brandish the firearm and they leave, great. But if they don't, you got to put them down. When someone is there at your door and they won't leave, your family is in danger. Family's got to come first, or else nothing matters. It's going to be a hard life, but hard lives make for hard men and hard women. You have to make that transition. It'll be a huge transition for some people unless you start making the transition now. I'm not saying don't be charitable. I'm not saying don't love people. I mean, Jesus Christ teaches us to do those things, and that's the way I am. But he also teaches us that we don't have to be sheep, that we don't have to be defenseless, that we have to succumb to wolves and predators in our society. And in that grid down scenario, the wolves, they're going to leave that city. That golden horde, they are going to leave the city, and they're going to be coming to the farms because everyone in the city knows that food comes from the farm. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be visiting us. We have to be ready. We have to be prepared with an entire security plan to protect our families and what we have, our means of survival. That's the bottom line.
Skip, you've been on the radio many times, and you've been on national broadcasts. You're becoming known far and wide at an ever-increasing rate. And let me tell you something that happened to me, and I'm sure this is happening to you too. One of our instructors was talking to a woman who heard me on the radio, and she said, have you ever heard of this guy? And the woman who knows me, comes to the farm, a family friend, said, oh, yes. Do you think that guy's right? Oh, yes. Do you think... well, and then the woman said, well, I know what I'm going to do. If things get bad, I'm just going to Finelli's house. Now, so I think people actually believe that they're going to get a welcoming committee when they come to the farm because they have only listened but not taken care of what they need to take care of. The other thing is, I know a broadcaster who does a once-a-week radio show. I won't mention his name or where he broadcasts, but I've heard him say, hey, I got me a gun. I don't need to prepare. I got me a gun. This is going to be a bad day for everybody involved with those attitudes. With the attitude that this woman has, that she's just going to show up, and she's probably not the only one. And then this guy that he's got himself a gun, he's just going to take what he wants. That's Mad Max. Yep.
Yeah, that's for sure. The woman that told you that, she's just going to come to your farm, that's the way she was raised. The last 30, 40 years, we have been raised in an entitlement society. She's entitled to whatever you have simply because she exists. She actually believes that. And for you to withhold that from her is a sin in her mind. So she's not living in the real world. I mean, that's the whole point. And, people are going to find out that they can do things they never thought that they could. Do we have time for a 2-minute story?
Absolutely. We've got about, yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay. Vinny, I was doing a private class, concealed carry class, and we were out on the farm, husband and the wife team, and we'd been through all the classroom. We were out on the range now, and we were shooting. The man, he was shooting fine. The woman could not hit the broadside of a barn from the inside. And normally I can watch someone shoot for 15 minutes, and I can say, okay, here's what you're doing wrong. Try this, try this, try this. I'm watching her shoot. She's not on the paper, but I can't see that she's doing anything wrong. And so she's getting really frustrated, and finally I called her off to the side. I said, okay, what are you thinking here? Why don't you tell me what's going on? And she was really frustrated. She says, I don't know what's going on, but, I didn't want to take this class. I don't want to shoot this gun. My husband made me do this, so I can protect myself, but I'm a good Christian woman, and I don't believe in killing. And if someone were to try and kill me, I would just die. I would just let them kill me because I don't want to take another life. And I go, wow, okay. Well, I said, you know what? It's good that you told me that because we don't want you carrying a gun that you can't use. But we've already been through 6 hours of class. We got a couple hours left. Why don't we just try one more thing? And she said, okay, fine. I said, what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to describe a scenario to you. I just want you to view it in your mind's eye and let it play out. She said, okay. I said, here's the situation.
Hey,
you're down.
Sure. We had less time than I thought. But we're going to talk about what happened when she closed her eyes and you asked her to envision this scenario. Skip Coryell, Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com, skipcoryell.com, SkipCoryell.com. Link on the website. We'll be right back. Class, I'm delighted to have Skip Coryell with us, our newest USAPrepares.com instructor. And he's been telling us a story about a training class where a woman was firing at the target and couldn't put a single round on the paper. And Skip didn't see anything that was obvious, that was wrong. So he invited her to close her eyes and vision or imagine something. Skip, what was that?
Well, what I had her do, Vinny, is close her eyes, and I said, imagine yourself a couple miles down the road at the gas station. You're pumping gas into your car, and another man drives up, parks his car next to yours, gets out of his car, walks over to your vehicle, and reaches in through the open window in the back door and unbuckles your 1-year-old daughter from her car seat. He lifts her out of the car seat, carries her over to his car, opens the door, places your daughter in his car, and then starts to get in his car to drive away. And as I was telling this woman the story, I was watching her face. Her face changed. It got all tense and stressed out. And I just very bluntly said, at that point in time, could you take another human life? And this pious Christian woman immediately said, without hesitation, I would shoot that son of a bitch. And the thing is, and then she never missed the target for the rest of the class. The point is, she had a mental block, and she was totally sensitized to taking another human life, but she had never really thought it out. She just said, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. But she hadn't thought it out. Now, what happens in this scenario? All of self-defense is scenario-based, and you have to think about those scenarios. In what scenario am I willing or able to take a human life, and when am I not? We're going to live or die based on decisions that we make, but the people that we love are going to live or die based on decisions that we make. And we have to be very sensitive and mindful of that, and we got to think it all out ahead of time, because when we get in that situation, it's too late. There's not the time, and there's not the presence of mind and the clarity to do those things. So that technique of visualization worked for this woman, and I think it'll work for your listeners as well, but they need to get started now before it's too late, Benny.
I could not agree with you more, and it really takes some thought, and I actually think it takes a family meeting to decide, for a family that does not have a firearm or have each family member with a firearm, it actually takes a family meeting, and that's what I did many, many years ago. And I sat down with Mrs. Finelli and the children, and I said, okay, if we're in a situation like that, would you have the strength to take another life in defense of your family? And I said, if the answer is yes, we're going to proceed and we're going to make sure everybody's armed. If not, we are not, because that gun, that firearm, that rifle, that shotgun could be used against us. So the question is, do we have the internal fortitude to protect ourselves and defend ourselves from whatever the threat may be, up to and including taking a life or lives if we are threatened with serious bodily harm or death. And everyone in the family said yes, and everyone in the family is armed. And we literally went through that discussion, Skip.
Well, everyone has to do that, especially in this day and age, and especially in a societal collapse scenario. It's going to have to be done. If you wait until it happens, it's almost too late. You're really, hobbled at that point, because it takes a lot of training and a lot of skill, not just civilian-type skills, civilian self-defense skills, because in a grid-down scenario, you're talking about military-type skills that you're going to need. So you've got to get prepared now, and it should be part of your life, part of your mindset. That warrior mindset is something that we all can have, and I've watched thousands of times, in the people that I train, that transition from sheep to sheepdog to warrior mindset. It's incredible, and it's fun to watch, and it's very, very satisfying to teach people how to protect themselves and the people that they love. It's so important.
Skip, we're out of time, but when we need to come back and talk about Sun Tzu and guns and ammo, force multipliers, camouflage, deception, and building a team. Is that okay with you?
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? This is hour number 2, USAPrepares.com. With me on the broadcast class, Sam Bushman, Liberty Roundtable. Sam is a dear friend. We work together almost 7 days a week. He's been to the Get Prepared Expo. He's been to the meetups. And we're going to discuss the government shutdown. Now, frankly, I'm not happy with the partial government shutdown. I would be happy with something closer to a 99% government shutdown. Welcome, Sam Bushman.
Thank you, sir. Delighted to be here. I will agree with you. We certainly need to push for more, but I'll take anything I can get. Whenever a bureaucrat's shut down, not getting paid to harass me and my family and my life, I'm delighted, and I think that it's a good start, and we need to push for more, sir.
Sam, why do you call me sir? You and I, heck, we're on the phone a couple times a day, every day.
Because it's a sign of respect, and because I have my sons call me sir, so they learn to call other people sir, and it's a respect. It's not a you're an old guy. Just sir is a respectful way when you walk into a store or something, and so you say thank you, sir. And it's a respectful way to treat people, and I think we need more of that in our society.
Well, I agree. It's just we're buddies. We're buddies, and. Sam, Mount Vernon, Virginia, George Washington's home.
Delightful place. I've been there, and I love it.
Yeah, I have too. And I went when I was very young in grammar school. It's operated, run, owned by the Mount Vernon Ladies Association. And the federal government decided that it was in our best interest, probably for our own safety, that they would shut down George Washington's home because of this partial government shutdown. Sam, I looked at the news, and they rolled out some really shiny, spiffy, brand new barricades. Now, these are sawhorse-type barricades where they have a triangular end made out of plastic, white plastic, and then they have this beam that goes across. Think of it like an 8-foot 2x4, and it has reflective tape on it. Sam, not a ding, not a dent, not a scratch. They spent money to get brand new barricades to prevent us from getting hurt at Mount Vernon, a privately owned facility. The government doesn't own it. However, the government does share the parking lot.
And I would submit to you this is criminal behavior. There is no authority for the federal government to shut this down. Some rogue agent, some rogue thug is taking too much power unto himself. We need to really start asking names, taking notes, finding out who authorized this, and they should be criminally liable for their abuse of the law, sir.
Well,
they don't have any authority. And it's not that I want to get radical or belligerent. I'm just saying we cannot let the government just assume they can do anything they want anytime, anywhere because they're the federal government. Listen, there's a rule of law that they must obey, and they have a responsibility and obligation. In fact, they've sworn an oath to carry forth that law, and when they violate that, they need to be accountable, or what's the next step? Not letting 90-year-old men go to the opportunity to go to their World War II venue there? Well, they didn't let them go either, and they wouldn't have any of it. Look what's happening in America when they get this belligerent. They're trying to score political brownie points by shutting all these things down and making the American people frustrated in an effort to break the stalemate. They're playing political games with serious issues here, and they have no authority, and it needs to stop. Because if they continue to escalate this, somebody's going to get hurt, and I want no part of it. I give speeches across the nation, Vincent, where I use the Taco Bell phrase where they say, think outside the bun. I say think outside the gun when it comes to restoring America peacefully. These people are escalating it intentionally. The question is why?
It really appears to be exactly that, Sam, because for a group of 80 and 90-year-old men, many of whom are in wheelchairs, to fly on an honor flight with chaperones to help them, to assist them, to attend to their needs as they become older, to go to Washington, D.C. on a prearranged flight that's paid for out of private funds. I mean, it's not like the government is flying these guys out there. These guys served our country, and they're visiting this memorial in Washington to them, a memorial to them who fought bravely, valiantly, many of whom were injured, killed, maimed, wounded for life, mentally wounded for life. My father was one of them. My father woke up many nights screaming, get the gun, because he was dive bombed by kamikazes when he was on a troop ship. He was at the Philippines, and he was cleaning up after the Bataan Death March. He talked about that. He said, Vinny, you'll never, ever forget the smell of rotting flesh, because he had to clean it up as a U.S. Army sergeant in the Philippines, cleaning up after the Bataan Death March. These are the kinds of guys. Now, my father's no longer with us. He passed away. But these are the men who fought for us that your government is preventing from going to their memorial in Washington.
And what we're talking about here is their First Amendment rights to peacefully assemble. Now, let's make note that this venue for these elderly people that suffered and died for their country, it's open rain or shine. It's open even when government is closed on government holidays, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is never closed. Let's make that very clear. But for political purposes, they're shutting it down. And I want to know who shut it down. Who gave the authority to shut that down? Where does the authority come from? And if the Congress didn't authorize it to be shut down or create a bill to say so, in other words, change the law to shut it down, who took the law into their own hands, Vincent?
Sam, you sound really concerned about this, as I am. I can, I know the tone of your voice. You're furious, and so am I.
I am am frustrated, but what I want to do is appeal to the rule of law in this case, though. I don't want any vigilante actions. I want to think outside the gun. I want to be peaceful, but I do want to ask the correct questions and say, who authorized this? Is somebody using this against our veterans in an effort to escalate this? Is someone intentionally taking the law into their own hands without authority to do so? And if so, who is it? And I want that to be transparent, and I want accountability for that through the confines of the law of the land.
Sam Bushman, when I had a job back in the 80s, there was a company vehicle. And imagine this. Imagine Vinny going to the place where the keys are kept for the company vehicle, not requesting permission to use the company vehicle, and taking the company vehicle out to do something without permission from whoever was in charge of the company vehicle, and then bringing it back. I mean, just as simple as taking this on without permission, just borrowing that company vehicle and then returning it unscratched, unscathed. Don't you think I'd be fired for that?
You would, and you should.
Okay, that's nothing compared to this. That's nothing compared to usurping the authority and blocking the community, the citizens, we the people, from public property, outside public property.
The sad part is I don't see a single congressman or senator standing up and saying, hey, who's shutting these things down? What's their purpose? Where does the authority come from? No one nationally that I can see in the mainstream press or anywhere else is calling for accountability on this that I see, Vincent.
Well, we are. You and I are, and I'll go as little. I was going to say as far, but as little as whoever was involved in authorizing this and the people who did not challenge it, meaning the people who said, yes, sir, I'll go get that taken care of right away. I'll get those barricades up. That person and his boss and his boss and his boss should all be fired.
There needs to be accountability, and you can say we're talking extreme, but I would simply say this. At what level do we decide that the law matters? At what level do we decide that people have to obey proper restraints? You know, it reminds me if you had a house, and I was going to take care of the house while you're out of the country. And when you get back, you find out I didn't rent it out and prosper the home for you. I just sold it and partied on the money. When you got back, there was nothing left. That's what seems to be happening here, and there seems to be no accountability and no even real demand for accountability, and that's my concern.
Sam, they've also taken the parks. The National Park System has closed walking trails. They've closed bicycle trails. Now, my question is, exactly what did these guys do to begin with that it is so necessary for the government employees to be there when people are walking on the bicycle trails? Exactly what did they do? What did they do to benefit anyone that requires them being present for people to walk on walking trails and bicycle trails and ride their bikes on bike trails?
Well, the state of Utah, where I live, is having a heyday with putting up signs saying the federal government may be closed, but we at the state of Utah are not closed. And this really it comes down to property rights and land issues, and the federal government has in the Constitution a list of reasons they can own land, and national parks and biospheres and all these environmental whacked-out viewpoints are not in the Constitution enumerated list of the reason the federal government can own land. So I think this should be our clarion call to say, why not transfer the park back to the state in which it resides and let the state open it tomorrow?
There you go. I'm with you. I'm with you. Missouri, for those of you listening, call your representatives. We want all of Missouri back under our control. Sam Bushman, Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. Sam Bushman's with us, and we're talking about the partial government shutdown. It's a good start. It's a good start. 3/4 of the White House staff has been determined to be non-essential. And my question this week has been, Sam, I don't...
IRS is shut down. All we got is 9% to go, buddy, and that whole thing will be gone.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely awesome. I wonder what percentage of the Federal Reserve, because they say they act like it's a government organization. It's not. So I guess none of those guys have been furloughed, right?
The Federal Reserve is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You and I used the example of if you took the car keys from a company and I said, hey, if somebody was managing a rental property and they just sold it and partied on the money while the owner was gone. The same thing's kind of true here. We authorized Congress to regulate and to deal with coinage and that kind of stuff. Gold and silver would be our coinage. They just basically created a private Federal Reserve and turned authority for that over to the bankers. They have no authority to do that, sir. Just because we said they could take care of the honest money in America, that doesn't give them the right to just give that authority and power away, does it? Nope.
Sam, there's I just posted on USAPrepares.com the World War II Memorial has the security around it has been enhanced. Now, not only did they barricade it, what they have are these looks like an old-fashioned iron bed where they have round tubing around the perimeter of the bed frame and then vertical tubes that are smaller. So they have these that are these barricades that are standing next to each other. Now, in addition to that, these barricades are locked together. So they actually form a fence. Now, I could use this type of fencing to fence in cows, even a bull. I mean, and a bull requires a special fence. So because they're so tough. Our government has erected this barrier, and not only do they have interlocking panels so they cannot be removed and pushed aside, as the veterans did on Tuesday, but they have now wired them shut. So they're locked, interlocked, and wired shut. These guys are not kidding about keeping us off public property.
Well,
now,
and I want to know where they're going to get the authority, or the employees, to do all this. If all these employees are laid off, how do they just get this contingent that has the time to, one, go order and deliver and set up and interlock and all these things, these barricades? But where do they get the employees and the manpower to do all this stuff in a government shutdown, sir? Is it just magic?
Sam, I used to work for the government before, when I graduated college, I had a
We'll forgive Vincent,
job.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, you hear me speaking out about the government nonstop, right? Because I've seen it from the inside. I've seen it. I designed a government computer system for a government, and I see how these guys operate from the inside. That's why I can speak the way I speak about them. But let me tell you, Sam, they have 7 employees who are assigned to keeping the World War II Memorial locked down. Not only that, they have a forklift, or actually, kind of like a backhoe forklift machine. And they're serious. They don't want anybody. Now, these are 7 National Parks Service employees. So obviously they are essential.
And I'll bet you they're all armed to the teeth too, Vincent.
Well, I'm sure they are. And that's another thing. I was thinking about the bill that the 3 bills that I'd like introduced. I presented them to Missouri state reps to run with it. But should we go through that, Sam?
Sure.
Okay.
I think they're valuable, and I'll tell you why. Part of the reason that I'm delighted the government shut down, Vincent, is because it lets us go through every expenditure and line item by line item to discuss if it's really the proper role of government, if they really have authority to spend this money, if the money's spent in the most careful, proper way. Are they watching every penny like they should? Sacred funds from the people and stuff like that for the proper role of limited government. This gives us an opportunity to really explain and educate those around us about what the proper role of government is, etc. And I think your bills, the ones that you were talking about, go exactly towards that end. And what better time to discuss it when, hey, all this money's held up, all this government shut down, now it's just time to basically ferret through, hey, the unconstitutional portions of government, we should just leave closed forever. Why would we reopen them? And it's an opportunity to educate and inform folks about that. Well, your bills do the same thing, Vincent.
Sam Bushman and I will be right back right after these few short commercial announcements. Sam Bushman and I are here together, and we're talking about the partial shutdown of the federal government, and we think it's a good start. It's a
We're
good
begging
start.
for more.
We are. So, Sam, I met with a group called the Locke and Smith Foundation on a Thursday evening, and we, about a week ago, and I presented a 3-minute series of my thoughts about 3 bills that I thought we should introduce. So I've proposed these 3 bills, and they're on our website. And when I'm done saying it, I'm going to click the update, and I'll put them right back on page 1 because they are now on the older posts section of usaprepares.com. The first bill that I want introduced is no Missouri government employee shall have prosecutorial nor judicial immunity. And here's the actual wording of the bill. It's 1 sentence long. By the way, all of the bills, the 3 bills that I would like introduced, are all 1 sentence long. All Missouri state, county, city, and local government employees shall be held individually responsible for his or her actions, including, but not limited to, murdering anyone with tasers, guns, chemicals, electronics, and other tools that they select for their use. What do you think?
And the reason, so everybody understands, for that is this. When you swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the state constitution, and when you agree to be a government employee, what we're saying to you is you personally are responsible for your actions in that office. And just because you work for the government, that shouldn't give you this cloak of immunity and protection, especially when you are outside of the scope of the law with your actions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And what it's intended to do is have all Missouri employees that work for any government organization within the state of Missouri, local, county, city, federal, state, not federal, everything except federal, have them think about what they are doing. And if someone is harmed because of what they've done, they are individually accountable, responsible, and can be prosecuted.
Because you've got to look at it 2 ways. If they're outside of the scope of the law, they should have no protection. They're violating their oath of office or their oath of appointership or whatever you want to say by their very actions. And so they should be accountable for that. If they're within the scope of the law and they're putting others in jeopardy that can make them personally liable, then the laws need to be changed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's that simple, folks.
Right. And it's limited government, and we have elected these people, and we've hired these people to work for us. We don't work for them. We are not their slaves. They work for us. But
they only work for us in the which that they carry out their responsibilities under the law. When they violate the law or ignore the law or set the law at naught, then you know what? They've gone rogue, and they need to be accountable for their actions.
Mm-hmm. And this will allow us to prosecute them. They will not have immunity. Bill number 2, class, is called the Elected Representatives Integrity Bill. It also is 1 sentence long. And by the way, class, please point your representative, your politician, to usaprepares.com. I'll keep this up on the website for a couple days on page 1 so that they can see these and they can run with it and they can actually call it their own bill and take all the credit for it. We just want it done. Bill number 2, Elected Representatives Integrity Bill. All Missouri elected representatives shall read every word and understand every word of every bill that he or she votes on or is subject to being charged with a Class A felony. Now, that's the entire bill. But I just want you to know, a Class A felony comes with a prison term of not less than 10 years. Now, does that seem like a harsh penalty? I don't think so. I think when someone abandons the responsibilities and the oath of office to which they agree, that is a felony. And the ramifications can be so great that 10 years in jail, I think, is a light sentence for violating the oath of office and not representing the people and not reading every word and understanding every word of every bill that he or she votes on. So what I'm saying is, we might say, oh, they've got so much work to do. Well, if they're going to vote on it, they darn well better read it. And if they didn't read it,
rightfully intended to slow down the amount of legislative pieces that come to their desk. In other words, we shouldn't have a gazillion politically motivated special interest group pieces of legislation flooding our representatives to the point of ad nauseum, to the point where they just can't stand it. Okay, we need to have a situation where, listen, we have very appropriate, deliberate bills coming before them with an intent that makes sense for all Americans within the state of Missouri or wherever this legislation is proposed. And the reason we bring it up nationally is because we think it ought to be duplicated across the country, by the way. But the point that I'm getting at is we need to slow down the number of bills that they get, number one. The only pass that I would give them is if they say, I didn't have time to read it, so I'm voting no. I would give them a pass for that, Vincent.
Well, it depends on whether it's inverted logic, Sam. If no means it's working against the but here's where I'm coming from. Let's say there is a representative who says to his buddy at the state house, hey, listen, I want you to vote for my bill. I want you to vote in favor of it. And it's a long bill. The person being asked to vote in favor of this bill can say, are you kidding me? Do you really think I'm going to read 40 pages? If you can get it down to one sentence, I'll be glad to read it. Go back and do better. That's what should happen. All of our representatives should say to all of their buddies, go back, do better, get it down to one sentence, and then I will read it. And if I understand it, I will vote on it. If I don't understand it, if it's one convoluted, complex, inverted sentence that I can't understand and an 11-year-old can't understand it, I'm not voting for it. I mean, I think that's
your point even further. Look, you got the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution for the United States of America, and the Bill of Rights. All those together can be fit in what's called a pocket constitution. It's teeny in comparison. And it's the whole body of the law for the federal government.
Yeah, Senator Waxman, Representative Waxman, and said yesterday, or the day before, he was asked if he read the Obamacare bill, the 10,000, 11,000 pages. He said, do you expect me to read it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Or do what we just recommended. Send it back and say, when you get it down to one sentence, I'll read it.
Because how can we expect them to uphold their oath of office, to carry out their mandate that they swore to, if they don't read it and ensure that what they're standing for or against, as the case may be, that it would square with the law, that it would be legitimately protecting the rule of law in America? How can they say that if they don't know? And that's the whole point here. It's criminal to ignore the law that you've sworn to uphold and just say, you know what, for political purposes or to go along to get along or to scratch someone's back or to get donations or to go along with that, if they don't know what they're agreeing to, you would never do that in your business, would you? Or your personal life, just, hey, sir, don't worry about the long pages, just sign this. Don't worry, it won't make you personally liable. They're making the whole country liable by their actions.
Yes, and Sam, there are people who have jobs that they really don't like. I know a bunch of people that really dislike going to work because they don't like their jobs. But the people who we are discussing right now have volunteered for these jobs. I'm talking about they start out as representatives, or at least that's what we'd like to think they are. A lot of them turn out to be politicians. But what I'm saying is they actively solicit people to help them get these jobs. Hey, I want to help you. So will you vote for me? By the way, I need some money to advertise and campaign and put fuel in my car. And by the way, I'll remember you when I'm elected, if I'm elected. So will you help me? Will you help me get a job? And then after they get the job, they want to stay there. And they go back to those same people, knock on those same doors. Hi, remember me? I asked you for your help before. Can you help me some more? Can you write me a check? I need some money to keep my job so I can help you. What nonsense. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. These guys, Sam, what I'm saying is these guys want to do this. They want the prestige. They want the power. And yet they vote for things that they don't even read. And they admit it. They are so crass, so brazen, that they will admit, no, I didn't read it. It's immoral.
And there's no way we're going to fix this unless we create accountability in the system, Vincent.
Yeah. No, I agree. Let me read the third bill, Sam. It's called the Missouri Government Weapons Restriction Bill. One sentence. No Missouri government agency, department, government body, nor government person shall have the use of, nor the access to, any weapon not available to we the people. What that says is if the government can have these weapons, the Missouri government, I'm talking about the police, I'm talking about sheriffs, I'm talking about any government agency, department, government body, or person within the state of Missouri shall not have the access to any weapons that we can't have. Now, somebody might say to me, Vinny, are you saying that you want a drone? No, I'm not saying I want one, but I'm saying if they can have one, I can have one. And you can have one. When we get back, Sam, I'd like to hear your thoughts on Bill number 3, the Missouri Government Weapons Restriction Bill. Sam Bushman, Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. We'll be right back. Class, Sam Bushman's with us, and we've been talking about the partial government shutdown. We think it's a good start. Sam, I'd like to be careful exactly how I say this, but I'd like to share with our class that 3 broadcasters, you and Joyce Riley and I, have all gotten together, and we are on a mission to educate America, and we have taken over nighttime radio here in Missouri, in this part of the Ozarks. We're on a very powerful station, KUNQ, which is Big Country 99.3 FM. And you can listen. They're an affiliate of Genesis Communications Network. And so what we do is, starting at 10 o'clock, I'm on. And then at midnight, Sam Bushman's on. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning, Joyce Riley of GCN is on. And so we are broadcasting these kinds of messages 5 nights a week for 7 hours in competition with the largest broadcasts ever. We are going to head with them to get out our message. Sam, it's getting very good reviews. What do you think?
I think it's getting incredible reviews. I think it's delightful to see. And I think it's one thing that's never been done before is, you know what, constitutional talk show hosts that have a greater vision than their own personal aggrandizement, a greater vision than their own rock star superpower status, if you will, where that we want to see the country restored. And it's greater than us all. It's freedom above fortune. It's all those things that, in my opinion, are what America are about. It's founding father-esque, if you will, in terms of putting our own personal careers and everything on the line for a greater cause, the holy cause of liberty.
And class, I'd like to share with you how this started. Sam Bushman and I have a friend, a mutual friend, the Free Strike guy. And he invited me to go to an event. He really wanted me to go, and it was the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association event. Sam Bushman was there, and I called Sam. We hadn't met personally before, and I said, would you like to broadcast with me? And he said, hey, I'm going to be broadcasting too. You want to broadcast with me? So we ended up doing 4 hours of live radio together. We'd never met before, but we're exactly on the same page. And at that event, we talked about, one of us might be taken out, removed. And if that's the case, will the others rally to the rescue? I've asked that question of Larry Pratt. I've asked that question of another network owner in competition with us right here, right now, this morning. And we've all agreed. We've all agreed that this cause is so great that, and the threats are so great that we will come to the rally of whoever is harmed. And from that, we built this overnight broadcast to protect each other and to help you understand exactly what's happening.
There's one
correct,
word
Sam?
you left out, and that's duplicatable overnight broadcast, by the way.
Yes. Let's talk about that for a few seconds.
I believe we can duplicate this across the country. And I believe that we can basically educate Americans all across the country inexpensively. We can work together. We can have a picture that's greater than us all. And we can really make a difference. We can really stand together for something that, will go down in history as standing for something much more important for us. Later generations will look at some of the things that we've done, and they'll realize the power of Americans working together. By our greater numbers shall we conquer. And so that's kind of the opportunity about that. Check out KUNQ 99.3 FM overnights, and you'll hear Vincent Finelli, USA Prepares, Sam Bushman, Liberty Roundtable, and Joyce Riley, the Power Hour, 7 hours of radio. But I want to answer your quick question about this bill that you wrote, the third bill.
Yes.
About the bureaucrats, they can only have guns that we can have. Mm-hmm. And I want to say two things about that. Number one, it's incredible for me to sit back and instead of us just being on the defense all the time, which seems to be the latest politician's agenda,
go quickly,
to have good, honest, highly educated, incredibly informed, critical thinking Americans go on the offensive and say, listen, I have the brains and I have the logic to write a one-sentence bill that everybody can easily understand. And we're going to use our very best efforts to push that into the mainstream for discussion. Because you know what? Why are we always on the defensive all the time? Let's go on the offensive, and let's hold them to accountability. For example, the senators just had the opportunity. The House pressed them really quick into accepting the same Obamacare we get. The Senate rejected it.
5 seconds, Sam. 5 seconds.
That puts them on record. That's what we need to do.
Sam Bushman, Vincent Finelli, USAPrepares.com. Class above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next?